It's day 5 of 2024, and my sanity has already completely eroded. Hi, my name's Andy. Welcome back to Spymaster Gaming. A very warm welcome if it's your first time joining us, and welcome back for those of you who've been around for a while. The transformation into a green skin did not go well. I didn't manage to turn into an orc. Still stuck as a humie, but I will persevere. Now, orcs and goblins, my favourite faction from back in the day. Some of the first models I ever bought from Games Workshop. I say I bought, had bought for me. I was a kid. I didn't have any money. But they were some of the first models I had exposure to alongside Games Workshop's Lord of the Ring range. And they've always held a special place in my heart. The sculpts that are going to be re-released, you will have potentially watched my other video. If not, check it out here, about my sort of begrudgingness to pay for really old sculpts, 20-year-old plus sculpts. And I just wanted to do this video to show you that there are alternatives out on the market at the moment from other designers that would fit in to Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer the Old World aesthetically, and wanted to get your opinion on whether you prefer them or you would be happy with paying for the old sculpts. Let me know what you think in the comments below after you've judged for yourselves. So, Orcs and Goblins are going to be the comparison that I'm using. I am not sponsored by the company I'm going to be covering in any way. I've just discovered them in my early days on my 3D printing journey, and I really, really like what they're putting out. I think they filled a niche in the market where the old Warhammer Fantasy models weren't being made anymore, and they've basically plugged that hole where there's 3D options now for a lot of the old armies that weren't being produced, notably Bretonnians, Tomb Kings, as well as Empire. And in the last couple of months, they put out their range for the classic greenskins as well, which aren't really available anymore through Age of Sigmar, as they've gone down the whole Orc War Clans route, which is quite visually distinct from the old Orcs and Goblins. So I'm going to throw up on screen now a couple of their ranges so you can have a look, and we'll just discuss them so you can see what exactly they are putting out. So here we are on the Highlands miniatures page on myminifactory.com. They also have their own Patreon. I will put the links in the description below. They've been around for about 5 years now. January 2018, or a bit longer, 6 years, sorry. We're in 2024, I keep on forgetting. And they have put out quite a few collections, which are all suitable for rank and flank games, and obviously inspired by the Warhammer Fantasy designs. So I've said Eternal Dynasties here for Tomb Kings. It's quite a basic range there of 5 objects, mainly your core troops that you can use to bolster out maybe some of the official models. The Orcs, which we're going to be covering in a bit later, in a bit greater detail even, as well as the Goblins, which obviously will pair with the Orcs nicely, but we're not going to be looking at them today. You've got Transylvania, the Fallen Realm, which is the old vampire counts. Now, I know that vampire counts aren't actually going to be in the old world. I know they are releasing a PDF upon release of the rulebooks, and that's it. But if you did want some old style fantasy scoops for your undead, then I suggest you check them out because some of them are quite nice. Then you've got Gallia, the medieval kingdom, which is their version of Bretonnians. Really good scoops in here. Again, we'll look at one of them in a bit greater detail. And then you've got the Sons of Ymir, which is their dwarf range, which is pretty cool, and Sunland, which is their empire. So I'll look at a couple of the core unit troops, because from what we've seen of the old world, it looks like the core infantry troops aren't really going to be getting updated from what we've seen of Tomb Kings and Bretonnia. And seeing as they're the mainstay of any army, it's a cost-efficient way to basically flesh out your army without having to buy the same old scoops over and over again. So I think they're the most apt comparison for this video. So I'll look at the Eternal Dynasties first. You can see here, got a couple of scoops there of ancient skeletons with spears and hand weapons. The hand joints here are all modular, so they can pop off and you can print them separately, so you can mix and match and customize. Really nice, crisp detail from the and just quite chunky, easy to paint, not overly laden with detail as well. You're only going to need 2 or 3 colors to be able to batch paint them, which is quite nice because that's what you need for rank and flank. You don't need to go too heavy on the detail. Really cool sort of poses, and you can see there from where they're printed up and stacked as a unit, those are actual prints. So they will go together pretty well. The bases, you can print them off, or you can just obviously mount them on bases that you've bought, whichever you prefer. And there's the concept art, there. So they really don't stray far away from the I say concept art, the STL file. That's the design file. So yeah, you can see. I think they look pretty effective. And at $20, you can't really knock that, because if you kind of have to print out loads and loads of them, I think I'd rather pay one off for that file and print to my heart's content, so I can get a bulk of an army for free. And that's one of the things that Highlands Miniatures does really well. They price their things quite fairly by the looks of it. We'll look at the Bretonnia equivalents here. So look at their men-at-arms, their Gallia men-at-arms. Again, they're in the army box, which is coming out next week. And they're quite old sculpts. But here you can see really good variety of troops, lots of different options. It's extensive. We'll go through them in a bit, but I'll show you how they are when they're printed out. Again, really good details on them. Can't really fault it, to be honest. There's so much variety in there, and these sculpts are really cool. They're quite dynamic, I think. Really, lots of character. Look at his face there. He's definitely like an old watch sergeant or something, isn't he? Pretty cool. Yeah, but I won't labour the point. You can see the variety there, and likewise with the archers as well. They're quite an old kit. And see there, good decent variety of poses, and they've got the stakes available in their files as well, so you can put the classic wooden stakes in front of them as well. And then we'll just look at the Orc Warriors that we're going to be talking about and focusing on for the remainder of the video. So really cool designs here. I think you can obviously have hand weapons, spears, shields, all modular, like I've said. With the hands, just pick what you want. I should note as well, all of them come with a command group as well. You don't have to buy the command group separately. The files for them are there, so you can obviously print those out if you need the command group. There's a variety there, two-handed weapons and the spears and shields as well. And then, yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at off the printer. So, a couple of scoops there so you can see the cool faces. So using my 3D printer, which is the Anycubic Photon Mono 2, I printed out a selection of the Highlands Miniatures Orcs for you to see, which I'll just show you now. They are quite chunky. They don't use that much resin, but I was quite happy with how they came out. So here you go. So here's the selection of orcs I decided to print off. I've gone for a couple of heroes and some troops. Here's the orc war boss with a massive axe. He's definitely overcompensating for something. Nice, leading from the front pose. He's got his tactical rock there, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but the level of detail on this sculpt is great. Really crisp print there. Not too much detail that it would be a pain to paint, but just enough that it is it's the right balance, I think. You've got a couple of the Black Hawk proxies here, heavily armoured. Again, a couple of different types of metallic paint, and they'll be good to go. There's one with the axe there. There's one with the club. You can see some facial detail there, so a bit of green popping out through with the tusks. I should note that these models didn't take too long to clean up either. There was only limited flash after removing the print supports. Really happy with them. Not too time consuming at all. Then you've got the second hero, the shaman. He's got a bit more of an intricate staff than the design he's inspired by, and the spikes on the back are a pretty cool touch as well, but obviously very clearly inspired by the classic metal sculpt, which everybody knows. Then you've got the warriors here, as I mentioned, modular hands. Pop them off for spears, hand weapons, and shields. I've gone for the non-helmeted versions as I want to use them in a skirmish game later on, but there are helmeted versions as well in the file. Nice different types of leather armor, ragged cloaks. Really quite cool. I'm quite happy with them. Is a couple of the choppers that you can see there that just have the ball joints. As I said, just pop them in, and the job is a good one. So that's what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to paint a couple of them up now so you can see what they look like. So the first model I painted was the Orc War Boss with his tactical rock and big axe, using some Citadel contrast paints and some Auroch flesh for his flesh. Didn't take too long, about an hour. Really happy with how quickly it was to paint him up to a fairly decent standard, I think. But yeah, not too overly detailed, didn't take too long, which is what you want for this kind of game. really good overall, no issues. Next, you've got the standard orc boy with his chopper and his axe there. Again, not too much time at all. Really cool contrast with the mail and the hood, I think. Really nice different variety of textures on the model, which was quite fun to paint. And I think once they're all together in their unit, it would look really quite intimidating, which is what orcs are supposed to be after all. So there we have it. A couple of models with some paint on them. I'm really happy with how they came out, and I honestly can see myself using those Orc Boys sculpts from Highlands Miniatures for the majority of my Orcs and Goblins army, for the main core troops, I should say. Really easy to paint, really easy to print off as well, and I think that'll be a sizable chunk of the army done and dusted quite quickly. What do you think? Do you think that the sculptures from Highlands Miniatures are suitable proxies? Would you consider buying them and using them, or are you firmly in the old model camp and will only buy from Games Workshop? I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison now on screen with the old Warhammer Fantasy Boys versus the Highlands Miniature sculpts. Which do you prefer? Let me know. Really, really would be interested to hear what you have to say. If you haven't done so already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Still relatively new to YouTube and trying to grow the channel, so anything you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Stick around on the coming videos. I'm going to be covering more of the old world as well as some other rank and flank games from other miniatures companies, because while I feel that Games Workshop is the biggest company, they don't produce the best rule sets. I hope I'll be proven wrong with the old world, but I know there are some good rank and flank sets out there from other companies that I want to shed light on, and hopefully you'll be encouraged to dip your toe and try them as well. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.